on real people, real problems, and real estate.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Dr. Karen Lewis, licensed real estate broker, host of the Real on Real Estate Radio. And thank you all for joining us this morning. And with me, my co-host is
Jacqueline Williams. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a super duper Saturday. We will get started with the Real on Real Estate in just a minute. We're going to ask you parents, first of all, what is going on? You are home with your beautiful kids right now, playing teacher and parent. How is that going for you? I hope it's going very well. I hope things are going great. Those kids will be back in school soon, so just stay tuned.
Yes. And that's a good thing that the parents are home with their children, the ones that have to be home. Now you also have your children home for the school year.
Yes.
And you can also use it as bonding time, get to know your child.
That's good.
And another good thing too, you actually get a chance to see what your children are doing, because when they're away from school, when they're at school, you cannot tell what's going on. They're looking at the computers and looking at all different types of stuff. So you got to use it as a good thing. And when things happen, we always have to capitalize from a positive perspective.
Yes.
So that's great. Jacqueline, I want to give out my contact information, and I want to give out the phone number just in case someone wants to call and have a question for us, because we do have a super guest with us today. All my social media is K1 Realty Group, and my contact number is 954-248-9149. And the number to call in is 1-888-599-9626. I'll say that number again, 1-888-599-9626.
And I am Jacqueline Williams with K1 Realty Group with the lovely Dr. Karen Lewis. I can be reached at 770-256-1080. Again, that's 770-256-1080. Or you can reach me at Jacqueline Sales Homes with the S at gmail.com. And I look forward to you guys reaching out to me very soon.
All right. So can I hear from my guest? Is my guest on the line, Attorney Conrad?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
I hear you very well.
Yes.
First of all, we are so glad to have you. We thought about having you because the information that you can provide to our audience, for Facebook Live, WMBM listeners, that there's somebody out there that needs the information that you have to share. Before we get the show started, we want you to give your name, your full name, and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about it, and then Jacqueline and I, we're going to jump in because we have a lot of questions for you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to join you. So my name is Conrad Grant. I am one of the founding partners at the law firm of Kelly & Grant, which is based in Boca Raton, Florida. It's a real estate law firm. We cover a variety of real estate topics, landlord, tenants being one. That's what we're going to discuss most of today. Title and closing, homeowners association law, and general real estate litigation. We've been around 10 years, and I'm just happy to be here to join you. Any questions you have, I'm here to answer.
Well, we're ready to dig right in, though. When you say litigation, those words kind of sound scary, Attorney Conrad. But anyway, we're gonna jump right in, and we're gonna talk about the eviction process, or people who are renting, whether you are renting from a residential standpoint or whether you're renting from a commercial standpoint. Our first question to those who may not know the answer, we want to know, has the eviction process been lifted for residential and or commercial?
Okay, so that's a very good question. Commercial, there's never been a stay for commercial eviction. So throughout this entire pandemic, you were able to file commercial evictions. Residential, it started off in March, where the governor issued a moratorium on evictions, and this was followed by the Federal CARES Act, which Congress limited evictions if the property was backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, then you couldn't do evictions. The governor has since extended his moratorium 5 times. The latest extension is now through October just yesterday, Friday, the CDC has released their own moratorium on all evictions. There are some exceptions, but yeah, evictions are, in effect, stayed for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You want to tackle that, Jacqueline?
So, what rights do the landlord have now or during the COVID, for the eviction process? What are they going through right now with not being able to evict?
Okay, so Jacqueline, she gave you a question, but you know me. You know I'm a first grader. So
Yeah.
you know I have to do what, Jacqueline? Back it up.
Yeah, she always, that's my talker right there.
I gotta back it up, okay?
She loves to talk.
But I'm ready.
Okay. So we have an extension until October 1st. Now, one thing that you shared with me is that I didn't know this, and that's why I'm glad that you're here, is that I didn't know that commercial that there was no stopping or thing. I thought commercial too, because I was fighting for my office space. So I didn't even know it though. I'm going, but it's a good thing that I did. My landlord, they decreased my rent $500 extra.
Oh, wow.
So that's a blessing right there. I was a spokesperson. So thank you for sharing.
You were a spokesperson.
Well, I can let me clarify the commercial part.
Okay.
So even though there was not an official moratorium, but then you had local jurisdictions like Miami-Dade, as an example, would say that there are going to be no evictions at all. So there were local laws, and that the sheriff was not executing writs of possession. So to fill you in a little bit on how that process works, a landlord will file an eviction, it goes through the court system, the judge will enter a final judgment for eviction, and then the sheriff takes over from that point. The sheriff would come out to the property, post a notice, and then it would come back and remove everyone. So for commercial, the sheriff was not executing writs anywhere. There's a point when the sheriff was not executing writs anywhere in the state. And then Miami and Broward, they just started maybe 2 weeks ago. So it kind of is, while there was not an official moratorium, people weren't getting evicted anyway.
Gotcha. So going back there, and you were saying that we do have an extension. Now, are there some ways or some reasons that the landlord can file an eviction? I know because people are not able to pay their rent, but what if something else happens during this time? Can they file for an eviction?
Yes. So evictions, as of, I would say maybe 4 weeks ago, the governor clarified what kind of evictions can take place. So before, the moratorium just said no evictions. People were kind of lost. They didn't know whether you could terminate month-to-month tenancies or if there was criminal activity. They didn't know. So the governor clarified that you can start evictions, you can serve your notices, you can start evictions, but tenants had an affirmative defense. And the defense was, I could not pay because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And it had to be financial reasons, such as loss of jobs and so on. So as of 4 weeks ago, we could file evictions. As of yesterday, with the CDC guideline, it's even more limited. You can file evictions, but the tenant can file an affidavit or a declaration stating that they could not pay the rent, they're going to be homeless, and that it was a financial hardship caused by COVID. So both run concurrently, and so you can file evictions, but the tenant can defend against it. They would have to prove it in court. So.
Okay.
Do you anticipate this may go on a little longer, since a lot of people are still out of work, and to go ahead for those landlords to file those evictions? How is that process? I mean, I'm quite sure the counties are going to be overwhelmed. Individuals are going to be overwhelmed. So how is that process going to be?
So all the courts are backed up.
Okay.
Pre-pandemic, you had some judges have hundreds of evictions on their desks, and so all the courts are backed up. So and then the courts being slow, and some counties not issuing writs of possession. So there are protections. And then a lot of counties and cities and municipalities have money earmarked to help tenants. So a tenant could contact one of these organizations and they could get some money to help them with the rent. So things are slowed down. There's no real rush on eviction. Landlords are filing them. But that final step, I have not had a sheriff execute an eviction since March.
Wow.
And I have about 300 cases pending. So there are protections in place. Lots of landlords are working with their tenants. So even though the case is filed, it brings people to the table. So a tenant that might be avoiding the conversation with the landlord will now have the conversation. Maybe the landlord will accept partial payments, but people are working things out because of the moratorium. So one of your questions was, how long do I anticipate this to go on? Well, the CDC order says through the December 31st.
Okay.
So that's a long time.
Yes.
Even though the governor's order is set to expire in October, the CDC order would take over. Now, I want to explain a little caveat to you.
Okay.
It has to be for non-payment of rent. So a landlord could still evict for breach of lease, criminal activities. If your lease naturally expired and you're still in the property, landlords can move forward. This is all about money. You just cannot evict people for non-payment of rent, especially if they can prove that it's a COVID hardship. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, yes, but I want to clarify one thing. I just want to be clear. So you said the CDC order will take over and it will end December the 31st versus October the 1st. The CDC's order will kick in. That's awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
Yes. Because the governors, the CDC, that was a surprise to all of us. We didn't even see this coming.
Oh, okay.
We know that Governor DeSantis on the day before the moratorium was supposed to expire September 1st. So at the end of the month, the day before, he extended it. So we knew that was there, and then a day later, the CDC rolled theirs out. And, I have some highlights from the CDC one I can cover in a little bit.
Okay. Well, I want to thank the CDC for that, because some people needed that extra time. So thank you.
Right. And it's good. And another thing you said, attorney, is that here is something that's important. Sometimes people don't like to deal with issues, so we go avoiding the landlord and we say, well, we don't have to do anything because these laws are in place. But one of the things that is good, if you are a tenant or if you're a landlord, have the conversation. Do not try to avoid the conversation, because again, I mean, things could happen. It could be favor for yourself though, because just like I said, me personally, I was able to have that conversation with my landlord, and they did take my rent at my office down for $500, and that's a blessing to me. In addition to that, there is money out there. We don't like to do the paperwork, and as soon as it's more than, put your name and your address and your date of birth, then we're like, all this paperwork, no, completed. They also paid my rent for 3 months, the city of Miramar.
Wow.
So there's things out there, and there's information out there, and I know, attorney, you may have some information on your website too, because I went and looked at something and I started reading something. So there's information out there to help us get through this the best way that we can.
Yes.
And that is definitely true, but people just need to know where to look. And to reiterate what you said, communication is key.
Yes.
We have a lot of tenants who bury their heads in the sand. They avoid the conversation. Part of it is being embarrassed, but there's nothing to be embarrassed about. When you think of it, this is an unprecedented situation. People have lost their jobs because the government said you can't work. So with these protections in place, reach out to your landlord. If you can only pay, make a partial payment. Make the partial payment. I'll tell you a little bit about what the CDC's guidance is. And just to give you a little on the law, this was, as you know, Congress right now, they're kind of gridlocked on that last stimulus. So this was part of an executive order from the president, and so the CDC has come up with this roundabout way to do this. But one of the things it says, the order applies to renters who swear under penalty of perjury that the following are true. I'm not going to read them all, but that they've used their best efforts to obtain all available government assistance for rent or housing. That's number one. Okay. So it's available. Just go out and start hunting for these kinds of assistance.
Right. That's awesome. Good information too.
Very good information.
Okay.
And again, you can find it on my website. You know, there's a ceiling to how much it makes to qualify for that. It also says if you're unable to pay the full rent, then the landlord should work with you. But you have to make best efforts.
Exactly. Like you said again, communication is key. That's it. Embarrassment, you throw that in the garbage can, because at this time we have no way or no opportunity, no chance should we be embarrassed. Because I mean, if you really want to be embarrassed, if it just happened to you, you could, but if throw it in the garbage anyway. Don't be embarrassed. It's the world, you know. So and you want to make sure that you know everything works out for you. Everything works in your favor. Attorney Conrad, do you want to give out your website information? Give out your contact information. We'll do that at the end, but give it out right now at this point as well.
Sure, absolutely. So our phone number is 561-672-1161. That's 561-672-1161. And you can find more information at kellygrantlaw.com, KELLEYGRANTLAW.com, or you just get on Google and just type in Kelly and Grant, or Kelly and Grant Eviction Lawyers, or Landlord Tenant Attorney, and we're going to pop up. We're going to be at the top of Google almost all the time. And you can then link to us in that way. Gotcha. So, and my name is Conrad Grant. Our firm has 4 attorneys that handle all these issues.
Attorney Conrad, I have a question. On your website, we know you represent landlords mostly. Do you have any options for tenants on your site that, you know, they may be able to get help, or if they call you or email you or reach out to you on your website, are you able to help them, or you strictly just work with the landlords?
So I'll admit I don't have those resources on my website. Okay. And one of the reasons, when we started out doing landlord tenant law, we used to represent both sides. Eventually, we started running into conflicts. So we had to pick a side. The conflict would be, and that's now an ethical dilemma, where a tenant will call us and we find out that they live in one of the properties for a landlord that we represent. So eventually we stopped. So even putting out information that would be helpful to tenants could create a conflict for one of our landlords that we represent. So, you know, I don't have the information there, but we do have a lot of articles that can lead tenants into the right direction, even though it's written for landlords. You know, for example, my article on the CDC here, it covers what tenants can do. And it has links to that declaration that they need to provide to their landlord. And I put that there so landlords can provide that to their tenants at the same time. But no, I don't have resources explicitly for tenants.
And that's very understandable. We can run into that too as real estate agents dealing with both sides. So we do understand that.
Wow. Yeah, that is good though. So you do the landlord, the one who get the check cut too. Okay, I got you. All right, that'll work too. Question. Now I have a friend of mine, and she called me this week, and she has a tenant in the property, because I heard you say the sheriff has not been out since March. Now she has a tenant in the property, and she wants to send a letter to the client. So you all can send letters to tenants. Is that correct?
Yes, we do our conflict check, and yes, we can send letters on behalf of a landlord. A lot of times we provide templates if a landlord wants to do this themselves. You can find a lot of forms on our website too, so landlords can kind of help themselves, but we'll also draft.
Okay, so back up a minute now. You can send letters out, and you have those letters on your website. So if the clients wanted to, the landlords wanted to draft a letter themselves, they can do that. And you can send letters out to the tenants on behalf of the landlords.
Yeah, so let me clarify this. We have a lot of forms on our website. They're generic forms.
Okay.
Move in, move out forms, letters to the tenant that I'm making a claim on your deposit. So those kind of generic forms are on the website. To draft something specific, the landlord would need to call me and I would draft it for them. Or I can send them a template. But the templates for a personal letter to a tenant isn't posted on the website. I have a lot of generic forms that landlords can use. But I could give them a template and say, just fill in the blanks right here, but that's not going to be on the website. Maybe 27 forms are on the website, but there are some that we prefer to give the landlord the guidance on how to fill it out.
Gotcha.
Okay, so here's my next question.
Say we get time. Look at time.
Yeah, I know. This is probably the one last question you could ask. So say that a tenant
Here to do an hour.
I know.
We're getting there. Yeah, we're just not there yet. So say that a landlord is in court with his tenant and he wants to evict, and the tenant came up with all the funds to pay the landlord. Who has that right? Does the tenant have a right to say, I'm going to pay you and move forward? Or does the landlord have the right to say, no, I don't want to accept your money at this point. I want the eviction to proceed.
Good question.
Okay. So that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in court, by this point, the lease has been terminated. Okay. The landlord has the choice to say no to the money. I could argue, Your Honor, the lease has been terminated. Mm-hmm. My client doesn't want the money. They just want their property back. All right? But the law says that the tenant has a legal obligation to deposit the rent money into the court's registry. So a lot of people ask what the court's registry is. It's kind of an escrow that you bring your money to the clerk of courts and you deposit it there. So the landlord can say no. The tenant can say, I have all the money. I want to stay. But then this is where the judge comes in. So even though the law is on the landlord's side, a lot of times the judge will say, listen, you need to go work something out. I'm not going to evict this tenant today. Go work something out. I'm going to set this for mediation. Awesome. So he kind of twist your arm to make it work in the tenant's favor at that point. I've had one judge where my client insisted that he didn't want the tenant, but he wanted the money. And the judge said, well, fine, I'm going to give her money back. And you can get the eviction and give her her money back, and you can go appeal that. So of course we don't want to go appeal that. Right. But yeah, it's a balance. I think this is where the judge comes in, even though the law is on the landlord side. The judge will step in and kind of force you, kind of twist your arm to talk about it. And usually you work things out.
Awesome. Well, we thank you for that. We don't have an hour, but we got a lot of information today. Yes. So now what we need you to do is give out your contact information once again.
2 minutes.
Yes, so my name is Conrad Grant, and the law firm is the law firm of Kelly & Grant, PA, based in Boca Raton, Florida. Phone number 561-672-1161. That's 561-672-1161, and it's KellyGrantLaw.com. Kelly has 2 E's, K-E-L-L-E-Y, KellyGrantLaw.com.
Awesome.
Thank you. And I'm Jacqueline Williams with K1 Realty. I can be reached at 770-256-1080, and that's JacquelineSalesHomes@gmail.com.
And I am Dr. Karen Lewis, licensed broker with K1 Realty Group. And again, we always want to thank you for joining the Real on Real Estate Radio. Every first and third Saturday at 11 a.m. We will see you on our next show. And you all have a super Saturday. And I can't forget my contact information. 954-248-9149. Thank you all and make it a great day.
Great day.
Thank you, attorney. Thank you much.